Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. There we are. This is your host for the BBC here in London, and I'd like to welcome our listeners to quite a treat for today. I've been given permission to speak to a charming and promising actor, Stephen Haggard. Of course, you may know him for his latest film, circa 1936's Whom the Gods Love, where he played the famous composer Mozart alongside Victoria Hopper as Constanza. Or rather, better yet, you may be quite familiar with his stage work here in London and abroad, such as his debut some time ago as Constantine in The Seagull or Marchbanks in Candida. Of course, as of 2 years ago at the Royal Theatre, he premiered his original work, Weep for the Spring, starring alongside Peggy Ashcroft and Nicholas Hannon. Now, without further delay, let's begin our talk straight off. And might I say, thank you for being here, Mr. Haggard. It's an honor.
A pleasure. And if I must say, you fascinate me, young miss. What's an American doing working for the BBC?
A study abroad before war was declared on the wireless, of course.
In London? Respectable.
Yes, you've got me quite figured, Mr. Haggard. I must confess, I'm rather fond of the British theatre since I began my studying here. However, having seen your touring play in New York while I was visiting family, it was Whiteoaks, I believe. I tell you, I was beyond ashamed that I missed a chance to speak with you. Naturally, I simply had to ring you up and speak to you, given I'm here.
Ah, you must have an understanding of the fundamentals, then. Whiteoaks, you say?
Yes, in fact, I have your playbill for it, right here.
Do you? Oh, goodness. Let me see.
Certainly. Here you are, Mr. Haggard.
Quite a treat it is, I have to say, looking at this, and 1937. 1935. All that rather feels far away now.
Understandably so. I do have a handful of things here. You might recognize this playbill for the black eye, or, of course, this poster, Whiteoaks, with Ethel Barrymore.
Heavens, that's rather swell. Ethel Barrymore? My goodness, Miss...
Edith.
I recall now, and I beg your pardon.
Not at all, Mr. Haggard.
I suppose, to go on, goodness knows, my stage career has been an inverted one. I had all my great successes at the beginning, you know, and did all my hardest work at the end. To have one's best scene first, or to have no scenes at all.
Your passions and projects speak for themselves indeed. However, with that, I believe we are getting ahead of ourselves, Mr. Haggard.
You see, I was frightened of success when I had it, and so could not properly enjoy it. But I hope you'll forgive me for going on. You're quite right.
Now, you mentioned to me, before we began, that you've just been drafted into the war. Is that right, sir?
Right. Yes. I, an artist, and a most specific person, eagerly, mind you, yes, eagerly, awaited the arrival of the little printed card which will ask me to report at such and such a place for military service. I pray that I may be given a job which will enable me to kill as many of the enemy as possible.
To kill makes me shudder, even in self-defense. Do you so easily desire to take a life?
Certainly not. Perhaps this is not strictly my desire. For the mere thought of Killing, even in self-defense and in the heat of a battle, is utterly repugnant to me. For 4 years now, I have not even used my shotgun because I can no longer endure to kill rabbits, which are vermin. But I tell you this so that you may see to what depths I have sunk as a result of this disease of evil, which now rages like plague in the body evolutionary.
So I see. And you in turn also mentioned to me that you had something you wished to say. Before we dive further into your thoughts, that is.
Yes, for my sons, Paul, Piers. Their coming hither consoles me for my going hence.
A dedication to your sons. You must be quite the proud father.
Yes. My dearest sons.
Tell me, to pull back around to these thoughts of yours on pacifism and the will to deny fighting, what can you convey about the collective mindset and the controversy of beliefs, specifically on pacifism, that has risen amongst the population as the war rears its ugly head?
A rather intriguing point. Well, since I began to think for myself, I have tried to approach every single aspect of life from my own direction. If I have the time, I'll speak more of this later.
Of course. Go on.
However, for the moment, all I want to make clear to you is that everything, even in this monumentous and national question of war, and of whether or not the Pacific person ought to fight, I have, for several years, turned over in my mind and tested against my way of life, and thought, until I am sure, that my attitude to it is an entirely individual one, and not one conditioned by patriotism or mass hysteria, or even the plain fear of invasion and defeat of the country, in which I prefer to live.
So you're not simply doing this because you've been told to, or rather are waiting to be told to? Do you want to fight?
Indeed. I actually want to fight. And I believe that every man and woman in this, or any other still civilized country, ought to fight.
And your wife, did she wish to fight too?
Yes, my wife wishes to fight too, but she is responsible for 2 tiny children. So I have begged her to leave England. That is her most effective way of doing battle.
And when did you last see her and the boys?
I have just returned from Houston, where I saw them off this afternoon to America. The boys are both too young, thank God, to realize quite what it could have meant to me and to their mother, to part as we have parted today. Britain is at war, of course, and life is full of partings just now. But it is the implications of this parting, rather than its actual pain, that are so full of horror for us, and of a kind of ominous significance. For the future of the world as we know it now, for them and their mother, are going to America to escape the possibility of a wretched fate, a choice between death and slavery.
Gruesome and frightening. It's all tragic.
Indeed. But they are not going as people of the last century went, with ambition and high hopes. They are not even going as the Mayflower Pilgrims went, because they found their way of life in their own country unsupportable. Indeed, if that were the reason for their flight, there would be no great tragedy in it. There would be wretchedness, danger, hunger, perhaps. There would be panic and despair, which fill all refugees which are uprooted from the country, and the people they have loved for generations. And the world is so full of these pathetic creatures at the moment, but there would be no tragedy in the poetic sense of the word.
And what do you feel at present, Mr. Haggard?
I feel I suppose that, well, there seems to me tragedy enough. People are fleeing because there is still a chance. And on this 24th day of June 1940, a very good chance that all the wisdom, all the kindness, the education, the comradeship, the visionary development of the last 50 years would have proved of no avail in the battle against evil which is now raging. I am not implying by this that the development of civilization in the last 50 years, especially in England, has been well cultivated. But I do believe that never before in the history of this globe have so many creatures so ardently and simultaneously desired peace, and worked to achieve it. And never before has there been so blatant, cynical, and utterly inhuman a case of aggression as Hitler's.
He's the devil incarnate.
Quite. When the youth reach an age at which all this will interest them, they will no doubt find documentary evidence enough that what I say is true. For however cataclysmic the battle may become, I cannot imagine that it will lead to the destruction of every single archive in every single country.
I should hope not. History happens so that we may benefit from its recordings, of course.
Indeed. But who knows how much, or in what manner, the world may have changed by then. Who knows even whether history may not have been so cunningly falsified by those universal liars? Or the propagandists, that the few or others like them, may cause doubts of the evidence before your eyes, and condemn such archives as you have access to. As so much biased contemporary invention. To me, but not to Hitler, one of the most admirable characteristics of the human race is its power, even its desire to forget a hurt. You will, perhaps, and indeed, I hope so, have forgotten by the time you come to understand this what a frenzied material, slave-driven, adrenaline-injected German soldier is like, and the lengths to which he will go in order to rise to power.
Your convictions are strong, Mr. Haggard, but might I ask, do you hate the German people? You sound rather vexed, as we all are, by the rise of their dictator.
Quite the reverse. I managed, in the 20 years before this war, and the last during which I grew up, to get to know and love the Germans. The people, I mean, not merely their music or their paintings. I would not believe the men of the previous generation who fought in the 1914 war when they said that the German was a bestial and an uncountable half-human being.
And now?
And yet, I now find myself as venomous in my hatred of him as ever as my father was.
Yes, one must be detached from the other designated his enemy, mustn't they?
Perhaps, and indeed more so, for the Germans have developed quite admirably his talent for atrocity in the last 20 years.
I imagine this disgusts you.
No. However, it is not that which disgusts me so much. It is the fact that all the sacrifices of the 1914 war, the million of our best men, the shattering of the French countryside and of Flanders, their reconstruction afterwards, and the timid, ineffectual, and I'm beginning to feel foolish gripping towards a kindlier feeling between nations, and a wider view of the destinies of the human race. No, all this has been wickedly and cruelly wasted, and I find myself, for the first time in my life, believing Hitler when he says that the Allies did not win the last war.